So I finally played the Switch 2, and here are my thoughts. Um, if you've ever had like your favorite music artist, you know that what tends to happen is a new artist, they'll drop their first album, and that first album will become a cultural classic. It'll be a classic for them. It will mark a time in history and pop culture. It'll become a reference point for different eras of social media, fashion, music, all of the above. And a few years goes by, and everyone is in anticipation of the second album or the sophomore album. And the sophomore album can go one of a few ways. The sophomore album can either flop and cause the artist to be viewed as like a one hit wonder or a one album wonder, and people no longer take them seriously. The second album can be uh, just another instant classic right away, which doesn't typically happen. That doesn't happen often. There are like only a few artists whose second album was, just as good or just as impactful as their first. But what I've seen happen, not most, but what I've actually seen happen more often than not, is that usually a really good artist, their sophomore album is not an immediate classic, meaning it's not immediately received with the same level of critical acclaim. It's not immediately received with the same amount of accolades as the first album, and it takes time for it to grow on people. Right? People have to sit with the album for a while. You have to listen to it a few times, um, and as time goes on, it becomes more relevant to your life. And that's the analogy that I come to when I think about the Switch and the Switch 2. Like if Nintendo were the artist and the Switch was their first album, which obviously we know the Switch isn't their first album. They've been plenty of systems before that. But I'm just using this within the context of the Switch line of Nintendo consoles. So if you look at the original Switch as the first album, it was groundbreaking, critical acclaim. We had never really seen anything like it in that form factor. It was a game changer. People loved it. It stood the test of time. Just an amazing console. And after playing the Switch 2, I kind of view it like a sophomore album, meaning that I think it's going to take time for people to truly appreciate what the Switch 2 has to offer. I think it's going to take more time. I think upon immediately playing it, the experience wasn't like, wow, like, I wasn't wowed by the experience, but I was impressed with some of the things that I expected to see from a more powerful version of a Switch, right? So it was impressive, but it was a follow up of the same good stuff that we've gotten before. And that's what happens with certain sophomore albums. We kind of know what to expect from the artist. They don't deviate too much from what made their first album a classic. They just improve upon it and deliver it in a much better package. And that's kind of what Nintendo did with the Switch 2. And I think it's going to take time, again, for it to grow on people. I think developers are going to need more time to create games that really maximize the all the new attributes and features of the console. I think people are going to need more time to experience the performance differences between the Switch 1 model and the Switch 2 model. And I think Nintendo is going to need more time to deliver us those amazing first party titles, which is the reason why many people purchase Nintendo consoles in the first place. So we need more time with the console, in my opinion, to truly appreciate it for what it is and what it's supposed to be in the lineage of Nintendo consoles. Um, like I said, playing it immediately, you're not wowed. It's an enjoyable experience, right? Larger screen, larger Joy Cons, better feeling in the hand, more premium feel, good stuff. Like enhanced, it's like I said, it's an enhanced version of what we've already gotten, and no one's gonna get mad at better, right? But it's not different and it's not groundbreaking, and it's not a mold breaker. And so as long as you don't walk into it expecting that, I think a lot of people will be pleased with the console. For me, it doesn't offer enough still at this point for me to say, yeah, I want to go ahead and grab it. I'm going to give Nintendo that time to, I'm going to give them the rest of this year to release more games, more first party titles. I'm going to give third party developers more time to release quality games for the console. Hopefully, folks will start to do things that highlight the features of the system itself. But a big part of me feels like by the time the Switch 2 hits its prime, there's going to be something else that pulls the attention of gamers in another direction. I think by the time the Switch 2 rather is in full swing and we have enough games and there's enough first party titles and third party contributions, I think by the time we get to that point, I think Sony will deliver us something that will be more compelling. I think even Microsoft will deliver something to us that will be even more compelling. And I think that there will just be a lot of other things happening in the world of gaming that isn't necessarily going to take away from what the Switch 2 is doing, but it's just going to make what we're getting from the Switch 2 seem less impressive. And and so I say all that to say that hopefully Nintendo can kind of speed up the things that they have, on their docket. Hopefully they've got some, really amazing things under the hood ready to share with gamers. But overall, I think it's a cool console. I'm glad I got to play it. I'm glad I got to experience it for myself, because a lot of my commentary before was just based on me seeing others play it. But having played it myself, tested the console myself, seeing it myself, I think that it's a good sophomore follow-up album to the classic that was the original Switch. And we just need more time. We just need more time. A lot of people are talking about, like, I'm hearing about a Microsoft handheld that's supposed to be coming out. I know we're years away from this, but people are talking about the PlayStation 6. Who knows what that's going to look like, especially when you consider the PlayStation Portal. Is Sony going to do a PlayStation Portal 2? Are they going to improve upon what you can do with the PlayStation Portal 2? Will it be more effective offline? Will it, be more of a standalone type of handheld device that syncs to the PlayStation 6, when, it's sharing Wi-Fi? There's the possibilities are endless rather. And I think only time will tell us what other companies are going to do in response to the launch of the Switch 2. And, with all of the energy, effort, marketing, and finances that were put behind the Switch 2, I don't see another console coming from Nintendo for a long time. We may get an OLED version within 3 to 4 years. We might get an OLED version of the Switch 2, but this is it for a while. Buckle up for the next 6, 7, 8 years. This is what we've got, right? And you can only imagine, like, the Switch 2, I think, is just getting on par with more powerful gaming consoles. By the time it hits its stride, who knows what we're going to be seeing in terms of horsepower from other handheld devices and from other consoles. So I'm interested to know your thoughts. I feel like the conversation around the Switch 2 has pretty much died down. I'm not seeing as much content around it. But if you're still playing your Switch 2, let me know. I've heard people are starting to return their Switch 2s. I've heard people have already started to trade in their Switch 2s. Let me know if there's any truth to that. I'll catch you in the next video. So Y2K Collector, take it easy.